Hi there. Today we are going to try a MasterGMAT critical reasoning question, and obviously right away looking at this question you should know what kind of question it is. But anyways, those of you who want to try the question first before listening to the explanations, you can certainly do so. Simply pause the recording, and then when you're done, unpause it and you can listen to the rest of the explanations. So if you want to try it, go ahead and pause the recording now. Alright, so let's go through the explanations over here and how to attack this particular question. Now right away in critical reasoning questions, the first thing you should do is determine what kind of question it is. You should be able to tell right away, but just in case, look at the question prompt. The word boldface is in there. So obviously what they want us to do in this boldface type question is look at the relationship between the two boldface sections in the passage. And the trick to these really is to really break down the argument into its component premises and conclusions. That's what boldface type questions usually deal with. Sometimes that's tricky, sometimes less tricky, but really the main thing is not only to look at what each boldface type question is in terms of premise or conclusion, but also how they relate to each other, and certainly also how they relate to non-boldface type outside of what's bolded. That's important too. So over here you've probably realized that, let's take a look at the first section, the first sentence actually. The first sentence or first boldface is actually all premise. It's a fact. Now even though it says or it talks about the citizens complaining and it is therefore their opinion, be careful over here. Sure, it's an opinion. Some people might think it's a conclusion. It isn't. The actual report itself is a premise which can't be contradicted. The report itself is fact. All right, the fact that something was reported about what the citizens thought. So the first boldface is actually a premise. The second boldface, well, let's look at the first part of the sentence. The first part here is actually a premise as well, fact. However, and we have a but over here, so be careful. We have a but. The second boldface and second part of the sentence itself is actually a conclusion. How do we know this? Again, always paying attention to little words. When they give us clues, we have to pay attention to them. Now, almost certainly is a good indication that this is a conclusion and not a premise. Remember, a premise cannot be contradicted. A premise is fact. When you have almost certainly, it suggests a conclusion. Okay, so we have a conclusion there, and actually the last sentence over here goes back to being a premise that contradicts the citizens' complaints in the first boldface and supports the actual conclusion. Now, just based on this, without really even getting crazily into the argument itself, you should be able to eliminate things in the boldface. Just based on the fact that you know that the first part is actually a premise, you can already get rid of A, the first part is the argument's conclusion. No, it isn't. We can get rid of that without even reading the rest. And look at that. C as well. Can get rid of that without even thinking about it. Look, we got rid of two answer choices without thinking much. Those are gone. Now, based on the second one, which is a conclusion, take a look. It says here the second is additional evidence. No, it isn't. It is not a premise. When you see the word evidence, it means premise. So the second boldface is certainly not evidence. It's a conclusion. We could get rid of B. And what else can we get rid of? Take a look at the last one. The second is another premise. Just based on that, we can get rid of this answer choice as well. And guess what? We have our answer without even having dealt with the content itself that much. Not that hard. Most people have a lot of trouble with the boldface type questions, but the main thing is to be able to break down the arguments and know right away what each boldface type does. Based on that, you'd be able to eliminate most of the answer choices. The rest is obviously figuring out the different nuances. So this wasn't such a hard example, but it was a good example of how to get to an answer quickly just by breaking down the argument properly and knowing what clues tell you whether it's a premise or conclusion. And so, of course, take a look. The first is a report of one's side's opinion. It certainly is a report, so it's a premise of a side's opinion. Yes, of the citizen's opinion. And the second is the opposite position. Indeed, the word but, an opposite conjunction, you must pay attention to. You must always look at opposition conjunctions. The second is indeed the opposite position. We click on that. We have our time awareness tool, which you already understand, and we get a nice explanation and even a nice breakdown. Now, if you actually wanted to actually go back and look at the other explanations, you can do so by clicking on that. Kind of cool. And also, if you want to see the relevant lesson, you just simply click on that and you see the relevant lesson. Okay, so we'll be looking at a lot more of these in the future, of course, and until then, keep working hard, keep studying well. Good luck. Until soon.